Alright YouTube, I finally got my GoPro working. I'm out in the pasture in the golf cart, which I call a golf cart, even though I wouldn't be caught dead golfing. I was a golf orphan when I was a kid, so I have a pretty dim opinion of the game of golf. I have a cousin who actually records golf. He records golf tournaments, and I said, why don't you just paint your TV green and mumble? Anyway, today well, I guess before I get started, I should talk about my coronavirus equation that I've been talking about over the past week or two. I checked it today, and of course the numbers, the actual numbers that we're getting from testing and so forth, are a little higher than what I'm predicting, but it's the discrepancy is 17.5%. So I am currently 17.5% under the actual figure, and it's been 2 days since I messed with this, and I haven't been fiddling with the constant, which I could have done. I felt like it was cheating to continue to do that. So I'm within 17.5%. It hasn't blown up. It hasn't turned into a plague. People are still behaving hysterically. So it's wonderful news. It's really wonderful news. I wish people could understand it. I'm not saying this equation is perfect, but 17.5%, that's amazing. I mean, if being within 100% is astounding. Being within an order of magnitude is very good. So you really need to stop worrying. You know, wash your hands, take precautions, be careful around old people and sick people, but you don't have to live in a bubble. So what is this I'm looking at now? This is where I shoot most of the time. This is my berm. Somebody who owned this property a long time ago dug a pond, and they piled this dirt up when it came out of the pond, and they never finished the pond. So I don't have a pond. I've just got a big hole in the ground that mosquitoes like a lot. So I shoot here at the berm, and it stops the bullets, I hope. This is what I always like to call the Hickok45 starter kit, and it's improving a lot. If you look up there on the left, you'll see a little array of steel targets that I put together, and that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to go up and film it close up. I made this thing from steel that I bought at a steel supplier, and I bought the gongs online. I didn't want to use, you have to use hard steel. If you don't use hard steel, you can have problems with ricochets, and also the steel doesn't last too long. So I bought the gong targets, and I painted them, and other than that, everything is fabricated. So I'll show it to you. Okay, here's a little closer up. I'm just going to pick up the tripod and do my best here. Let's see. So I don't know if you can see what I've done there. I just welded two pieces of well, I welded a piece of square tubing on the top of this thing, and I slid another piece into it, and I painted it with truck bed paint, truck bed coating, which this stuff is almost indestructible. It's much tougher than paint. It's like 13 bucks a can at an auto parts store. And if you notice, what I've done here is, I gotta hold my phone, I welded a rod. This is actually a piece that I cut out of a spear from a Hawaiian sling, and I welded it on top of a bolt that I had lying around, and I welded a nut to this thing, drilled a hole. So this holds this in place, and these things are inclined a little bit so that when you screw the base, you know, the legs in, when you insert it, I mean, and when you tighten it, the legs sort of slope outward a little bit, and that gives it more stability. I'm trying to get this thing, get a good shot here. This thing has got a delay on it. Okay, so what I did up there was I cut a piece of tubing, a short little piece, and I welded flat bar to it, and then I drilled holes in the flat bar and screwed it to the squirrel. And you can see how it works from the back. Now there's a little bit of that soft metal, that flat bar, that's exposed from the front, so I may grind that down and fiddle around with it to keep that. I don't think it's that big a deal, but I may get rid of that because a bullet could conceivably catch there. These bolts are grade 8. People told me that I should use grade 8 hard bolts. They'd be less dangerous. Let's see. The round gongs have 2 holes on them, and the reason for that is I wasn't sure what I wanted when I ordered it. So I ordered gongs with 2 holes, and I found out I only needed 1. Maybe for appearance, one of these days I'll grind off the extra hole, but I guess the flexibility can't hurt. I painted the black gongs with truck bed coating, and these over here are just plain old Rust-Oleum, and it seems like the Rust-Oleum does not hold up as well. The black stuff, I have a feeling you could just wipe off the bullet residue and it'd be fine. I'm getting, I don't know if you can see it, I'm getting a fair amount of splatter on the legs, on the frame. I don't know if that's going to go through the truck bed paint or not, but you know, there's a limit to what you can do. So these things, you know, they have a little bit of sway to them, not too much, and because they're flat bar and not chain or rope or something, they can't go from side to side, so they're not annoying in that manner. So I'm going to back up a little bit with the old Marlin 60, which I don't like too much, and shoot a little bit. Maybe I should talk about the Marlin 60 first. Be right back. Well, I'll tell you what, technology is interesting. A friend of mine called me while I was trying to do this video, and my phone went berserk. Apparently when you have a GoPro, you have to use a remote. I don't know exactly how it works, or some other device other than your phone. But my phone went nuts, and I finally got rid of him, my friend. Although I was very happy to hear from him, because I know he'll watch this video, and he'll be sensitive and say something in the comments. Anyway, I ended up in a situation where when I thought I was turning the camera on, I was actually turning it off. So all the stuff I didn't want you to see, I have excellent video of that. But the actual things I wanted to shoot, well, that's gone forever. So I have to start over. So back here in the shade, I'm going to go back out to the field and start over with the actual shooting, which will take a very short time. But I wanted to talk about my Marlin 60, which is this right in front of you. Good. I'm looking at the. I'm using an Amazon Fire right now as my remote. So I was taking a minute there to look at the Fire and make sure I could see my hand moving around on the camera, because in the video, because otherwise I'd be sitting here shooting non-existent video again. So here it is. Now, I guess I'm going to troll a little bit. I don't like the Marlin 60. It's a crummy gun. And I'm not saying it's something I subjectively don't like. I'm saying objectively it's a crummy gun. And if you think it's a good gun, you're mistaken. And I will tell you why. I bought one of these things in 2018 and took it out and tried to shoot, and it shot 4-inch groups at 50 feet. And that's not a joke. Seriously, 4 inches. So I knew something was going on. And I took it back to Gander Outdoors, and they shipped it off to Marlin Remington. And Marlin Remington gave up on it. You know how very often in life you'll say there's something wrong with this thing I bought, and they'll say, oh no, it's all you. They didn't even try that. They didn't try to fix it. Sent me a totally different gun. And that's this gun right here. And I'm going to say some nice things about it. It's really beautiful. You can't see it in the dim light in here all that well. And also in the blazing sunlight, it's hard to see. You have to have kind of a reasonable level of light. But this wood is highly figured. It's got all sorts of little bands in it that show up like tiger stripes. I wish you could see it. Trust me, it's beautiful. I don't know why a gun this cheap ended up with this. I guess it's just random chance. So it's a very nice looking gun, and the balance is great, and the feel is great when you're holding it. It just feels right in your hand. So props, you know, props to Marlin for that. They did that right. But I think most people don't go any farther than that when they look at these guns. They don't open them up. They don't find out what's inside them. They don't know whether a trigger is good or not, because they don't know how to shoot. I know how to shoot a little bit, and I know a bad trigger from a good one. This thing has a terrible trigger, or it had a terrible trigger. I changed it. It had, well, I don't even want to get into what it had, because I don't remember it that well. I can't describe it accurately. All I can tell you is it's atrocious, and you know, people who can shoot agree with me. So on top of that, the guts in this thing are like a BB gun. It's very cheaply made. Later on, I got a Savage A22. When you open a Savage A22 up, you see real gun parts. You see a barrel that you can unscrew, and you see machine stuff in there, and it's heavy, and it's just a real gun. It has an Accu trigger, which is phenomenal. So the Savage is a great gun, and it's a little bit more expensive than this, but not much. And when you open this thing up, you see like a Daisy BB gun. It has pot metal in it, sheet metal. Also, when this thing comes from the factory, you can't shoot hyper ammunition. Now, I don't want to shoot hyper ammunition, but what if I put a bunch in there by accident, or I lend it to somebody and he puts it in by accident, or what if I just don't have anything else one day? And what about the fact that every other gun on the market can shoot it? So, it's not the greatest gun on earth. It's just not. See this stud here? I'm trying to put this thing where the camera can see it. This stud doesn't come from the factory. If you want to put a sling on this thing, they'll sell you, some aftermarket person will sell you a band that wraps around here, and that's what you attach your sling to. Well, I don't want stuff attached to my barrel. That's ridiculous. That's just not good engineering. So you want it attached to your stock. Well, there's so little room in here because of the magazine, you can't just screw a stud in there and hope that it's going to stay. It's going to come out sooner or later. So I had to go inside this thing and drill out a cavity with a Forstner bit and do all sorts of modification on the stud itself, which I bought someplace. And now I have a real stud. And this is probably the only Marlin 60 in America that has a real stud on the stock. So I just can't say enough bad things about this gun. I ended up buying a new trigger job package from a company called M-Carbo. And there's a guy who calls himself Arrow Dodger. I don't know his real name, but there's a guy on the internet who calls himself Arrow Dodger, and he sells triggers that he makes for these things, trigger groups. And the problem with him is he doesn't respond to emails, he doesn't respond to Facebook messages. You just have to chase him. And I tried catching him, and I just said, forget it. I don't care how good the trigger is. A grown man ought to, he ought to respond to customers. So I went to M-Carbo, and their trigger is not supposed to be quite as good, but I stuck it in there, which is a pain. And now it's actually nice. It's not phenomenal. It's not as light as I want it to be. It's nowhere near the level of an AccuTrigger, which the Savage came with. I'm going to repeat that. But it's pretty good. It's not bad. The sights are, you can see, not great. I mean, they're just plain old sheet metal, and you can't remove them unless you want to Dremel them or something. Maybe you can drift that out. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. Then you're gonna have a big hole here. So I don't like the sights. So I stuck a peep sight on it. I like peep sights a lot. When I was a kid, I had one. I had a Crosman M1 BB gun, which I thought was fantastic. And I hate to say this, it's terrible, but I nailed like half the lizards in my neighborhood with that thing. Sorry about that. Shameful memory. So now it's actually a nice gun as long as you don't look inside it. I always call this thing a sausage gun. If you remember the old saying about laws and sausage, they say if you want to have any respect for either, don't go and see them being made. And the Marlin 60 is like that. If you want to like the Marlin 60, don't open it up, because what you're going to see in there is going to make you very unhappy. So that's my big troll session regarding the Marlin 60, which is objectively not a very good gun. I've got I guess I've got 325 bucks in this thing now, or something like that, some ridiculous amount of money. Go on the internet and find what you can get for that, and then ask yourself why you would ever want to buy one of these things. So I'm gonna see if I can shoot it in a minute. Well, I don't want to waste your entire day standing out here shooting. People actually enjoy watching Hickok45 shoot. My case is a little different. I guess I'm about, I measured it someplace between 75, 80 feet, so a little over 25 yards away. Obviously, I'm not aiming with great precision. That's the fun of this, I mean, when you're a kid, you just point and shoot, and then you get older and you make it a really difficult experience with breath control and, all the aggravation. And then when you get steel gongs, it's really amazing. I mean, I didn't understand how great it is. You just point and shoot again. You just go back to being a kid. And you can really go through some ammunition. I'm going to have to load up. And I've been using these things, which I like to call Chewdums. I love these things. They're working out just great. But the box is no good, so I did this. I got myself a container that I used to use for soup. So I'm actually starting to like the Model 60 again. And I think this was a great thing. Now I have to get some more of these things. I have to, get some more. I have to make some more. Nobody's going to give them to you. They're not going to sell them to you. Well, I guess they would, but I'm not going to pay for them because I'm cheap. So the Hickok45 starter kit project is well on its way. And I encourage everybody out there, buy a welder and do this kind of stuff because it's fun.